Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today, I could not be more thrilled to welcome anyone to the podcast than Hal Cranmer. Hal, welcome today to the podcast. Thank you for allowing us this time and allowing us to learn more about what you're accomplishing there in Arizona.
Well, thank you, Gina, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be on this and work with you in the future too. I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it as well. So, let me tell you a little bit about Hal Cranmer and how I first heard Hal Cranmer and how it came to be that we're speaking to you today. It's probably been a year, you could tell us how, but I believe I first saw you on an interview by Michaela Peterson. And then I've since seen you on several YouTube videos, Sean Baker and others. And when I first heard you, I said, that's amazing. I've got to just tuck that away. I hope I don't ever need personally or professionally Hal Kramer's services, but I'm glad to know you're there if I do. And fast forward to today, we do have our first patient that we're working to get collaborating together on. It's going to be coming to your facility there, your home, your lovely, I hate to call it a facility, but your it goes by a lot of names
We
and
call it assisted living homes, so
okay,
home is fine. I'd much
wonderful.
rather be known as a home.
Yes. So this podcast is for you today. One, if you're focusing on your own health and longevity and maintaining heart and most importantly, brain function for the rest of your life. There's so many people that come to see me, and I'm sure you've heard this story over and over again too, Hal, is I want to live a long time, but I don't care about living a long time unless I have my brain working for me and hopefully my body too, but I don't want to be in a wheelchair somewhere with just my head hung over and I don't even know who I am or who the other people around me are. And that's a sad situation in perhaps the world, but certainly the United States of America, as that story repeats itself over and over again. I've experienced it with my parents and grandparents and relatives, as I know you have, with a lot of people. I don't know about your relatives specifically, but nonetheless, today I want everyone to hear what Hal Kramer is accomplishing at his, I believe it's several assisted living homes in Arizona. And he's certainly on the cutting edge of reversing and stabilizing dementia. We know it's possible, at least in many cases, it's possible. A lot of people just like reversing, don't believe it's true. Just like I know for a fact, we can reverse and stabilize cardiovascular disease. We can see it with our own eyes now with the technology we have. The same is true with many, many cases of dementia. I know there's a lot of contributors, so one pill will never work. And probably one intervention will never work because there's multiple contributors, but you tackle them one at a time. And your goal is for those that have cognitive decline to come to your homes and to leave as soon as possible. So, why don't you give us a little bit of your background of how you got into this and where things are now that you've been doing it for, I think, a year or two, or maybe longer. I'm not sure. And well, let's start there.
All right, sounds great, Gina. That was a wonderful introduction. And yes, the good news is, like many other health conditions, it can be reversed. I've seen it. It's a lot easier to be prevented and mitigated, as if a lot of conditions. But if you catch it early enough, it can be reversed. And even the late stages can be improved. It's really hard to reverse it at the late stages, if not impossible right now, but it definitely can be improved. So my background, I went to the United States Air Force Academy, which is not the background for assisted typical of this living homeowner. I
Mhm.
became an Air Force pilot. I flew several planes, including mostly Special Operations C-130. So we drop all the cool people, Navy SEALs, Army Green Berets, all those kind of the cool kids out the back of the plane, and work with them, resupplying them, things like that, all over the world. They used to say the C-130 is the plane that brings you to the worst places on Earth since 1953. So uh, it's got to see the whole world. One met unbelievably wonderful people. But my I came back from a 4-month deployment to Saudi Arabia, and my 2-year-old daughter didn't recognize me. And I thought, that's when I'm getting out. I'm not going to watch my kids grow up on videotape with 9 other guys in a tent who don't want to watch my kids. So I got out. I decided, well, I'm a pilot, so I went to go pursue an airline career. I flew for an airline called US Air for about 3 years, which is no longer in existence. It's part of American Airlines now. But then 9/11 happened, and I lost my job along with half the airline pilots in America. It was a very tough time. No one was hiring, trying to find it. I had basically two choices as a pilot, either fly for some smaller outfit, either corporate or in some weird, cargo over in Africa or something like that. I didn't really want to be away from my family that long. And so um, the other choice as a pilot was go back in the military. And I really didn't want to go back to Iraq and Afghanistan and all that. And again, be away from my family. So I decided my flying days are over. I'm going to pursue a business career. And in the Air Force, I got an MBA. I was thinking maybe if I ever got injured and was no longer medically qualified to fly, I could turn to that. I didn't think terrorism would change my career plans, but um, I looked around all over the place. My sister-in-law was a corporate tax director for a large manufacturing firm in Minnesota. My wife's from Minnesota, and she pulled some strings and got me a job as an internal auditor, which flying airplanes to reading financial statements is quite a leap. But I had a wonderful boss as an internal auditor, and I had a lot of support from the other auditors who kind of got me up to speed. And I spent a lot of late nights trying to learn how to read financial statements and dig into people's finances at all the different facilities in the company. Did that. It was kind of a rotational program, moved out of that, went into a supply chain role for a manufacturing company, um, moved around one or two manufacturing companies, actually uh, worked my way up to be a plant manager of a large machining company that machined a lot of large structures for aerospace and defense applications in Minneapolis. And I was doing that and flipping some houses and owning some rental properties on the side when an investor said to me, "You should check out assisted living." I was renting to college kids at the University of Minnesota mostly, and the investor said your tenants in assisted living don't have keg parties and they don't kick in walls and doors when their girlfriend makes them mad. So that sounded good to me because I was doing a lot of repairs from these parties. At the time, my daughter was getting to college age, and we were in the middle of the polar vortex in Minneapolis, where we had 30 days of weather that the high never exceeded -10. And she said she wanted to go to the hot college in the hottest place in the country because she's so sick of the cold. So we've been going down to Arizona a lot. I went to flight school in Arizona. We loved it down here. My in-laws were snowbirds down here, so we were visiting them a lot. And so she just really liked it and wanted to go to ASU. My sons were thinking of going to ASU too. So we're trying to figure out, well, if they're going down there, they're probably going to live down there. So we should go down there and be with them. So I enrolled in a class to learn about assisted living and how to run them and everything. I really liked what I saw, finance wise. And then we cut the guy teaching the class had a realtor, and the realtor had some for sale. And we just took the leap and moved down here, left my jobs and stuff in Minneapolis, and been doing it ever since. That was 2016. So we're past 9 years. It was May of 2016. I bought my first one in 2015 and was running it, flying back and forth from Minneapolis. My daughter was kind of helping me check on it every so often. It was close to Arizona State. And then we bought four more once I'd been running it for a year. And I was thinking I got the sort of the gist of this. And we moved down here, and I've been running them full time ever since. So I guess based on that one, I've been doing this 10 years.
Wow.
and really enjoy it.
Wow. And when you opened the first one, did you already have the concept that it would be a temporary stay, if at all possible, for all of your residents?
No, not at all.
Oh,
I got in this, like I said, as a real estate investment. I was thinking, I know how to do rental properties. I took a class in assisted living. I kind of get the idea of it. I'll just run these as assisted living. With rental properties, people move in and, well, it's your house for a year or whatever, how long your lease is, and you do what you want. I was thinking, well, I can hire a staff and I'll just sort of be on the periphery, maybe help them with marketing, keep it full, that kind of thing. I didn't think of nutrition and trying to get them out of there and everything. I was thinking more for myself,
mhm.
um, how do I make the most amount of money with
Right.
these?
Yeah.
We just need to keep it full. We need to keep the costs down, things like that. And the first home I bought, it kind of has a bunch of Medicaid people. So we really did need to keep the cost down. As a doctor, Medicaid's not the most lucrative opportunity in the world, but the price was right to buy it. So I went ahead and I just tried to, um, you know, maximize profit. And part of that was, let's go to Walmart and let's buy the cheapest food possible, things like that. Because
Right.
there was no one at the Department of Health was really worried about what you're feeding them. They were very much concerned with, okay, the doctor prescribed, Seroquel at 50 milligrams a day, 2 times a day or whatever. Are you giving them what the prescription said from the doctor? That
Mm,
was the big concern. And everyone, I noticed when people advertise their assisted living home on Facebook, they'd advertise, I got a perfect survey from the Department of Health. When they came and inspected, they had no write-ups for me.
mm,
Well, you know, I get a couple of write-ups every time they come. I've had some perfect surveys, but most of the time I get two or three write-ups. And it's stuff like you didn't get a signature in time from this doctor, or, the oxygen bottle wasn't secured. I just had a survey the other day. We got one write-up and that was it. We have a lady on hospice and the hospice people didn't secure the oxygen bottle on a rack or something. You know,
mm,
those are kind of things that families really, okay, yes, technically, I don't want the oxygen bottle falling over and blowing up or whatever. Definitely, we should secure it. Those are sort of a given. Like everyone's supposed to be doing that, right?
mm,
The family wants to know, are you taking care of my mom? Is she eating well? Is she getting cleaned? Is she having some activity? Those kind of things. Not, are you adhering to every single one of our regulations? Do you have a evacuation plan that you're doing every 6 months? And if you did it 6 months and 2 weeks too late from that 6 months and you get a write up for that, that's really not going to affect your mom
mm,
tremendously, right? It seemed like everyone was competing on how well they could comply to the regulations. And I was thinking, how can I serve my customers the best? What do they want? And comply with one of the regulations might be one part of it, but there's so much more, right?
mm. Yes.
And um and I also found, like, if we're all doing it the same, we just follow those regulations and do exactly what they tell us, then everyone's just competing on price and location. I want to be near my mom so I can stop by after work and see her. And if your home's exactly the same as the other home, then all that matters is who's got the lowest price.
Mm,
And so, as a businessman, that doesn't seem like the smartest thing to do. So when I first got into this, I had to learn the business. So I was just doing it like everyone else. But then it bugged me that these people just lay around all day. We put them in front of the TV. We feed them medications according to the doctor's prescription. And hey, their health is a problem with the doctor. It's not my problem, right? I'm giving them food, I'm giving them shelter, I'm keeping them clean and stuff, but I'm doing what that doctor tells me, and they're just writing prescriptions for them. So there's no, hey, are we making them better? And I think that's one of the big problems with the American healthcare system in general is, you know, this is their problem, give them this. And we don't really, does that help? Does it work? Yes. If they get worse, we're going to try something else. But if they just sort of maintain, well, it must be working then, right? So I had a gentleman come into one of my homes. He was a World War II pilot, so he and I had a lot to talk about, but he actually flew in the Berlin airlift. And he, as a lot of them do when they come to assisted living, he said, I don't want to be here. I want to live at home. And I asked him, well, how badly do you want to live at home? And he said, oh, really bad. I'll do anything to get home, and not a reflection on my place. Lots of people, they want to live at their home. So I said, I'll make a bet with you. And I talked to his wife who put him there. And I said, if he can walk out of here, he came to us in a wheelchair and walk to his car and get in the car and you drive him to his home, we'll say he's good enough to go. Okay. He didn't have a lot of cognitive decline. He had more physical issues. So I thought, okay, well, if he eats better and he exercises, those are his best chance to do it. So I hired a trainer to come in and work with him. His wife paid for it. And I told the cooks, let's just serve him meat and vegetables. Okay. Let's not give him pizza. Let's cut out sugar, just what your mom tells you kind of thing. I didn't know a whole lot about nutrition then. So, we did all that. He worked really hard. Even when the trainer wasn't there, he was using our weights and our bands, and we've got railings that they can do squats on and things like that, pulling himself out of the wheelchair. And about 7 or 8 months after he came into our facility, he got out of his wheelchair, walked to his car and got in it, and his wife drove him off. We went over to his house to make a little video, and he was out walking his dog when we showed up at the house. So I was thinking, hey, there's a market for this, right? I had a lot of people come and tell me they didn't want to be there. But after a month, we're doing their laundry, we're making all their meals. It's easy for them. They're settled in and they're like, okay, I'll stay, you know. Um, but I thought even if they can't go home, they can have a better quality of life. They're not drooling on themselves. They're able to go out with their families to go home for a weekend or just go out to a restaurant for a meal. Or we had one guy go on a cruise with his family, went on a vacation, and then they come back to my home and they get to experience life so much better and their families get to experience life so much better and maybe for a longer period of time too. During COVID, we had one home who didn't lose anyone for 2 years from like 2020 to 2022 for any reason, let alone COVID. We never lost anyone because of COVID, like due to a COVID related illness.
Mhm.
And for a nursing home, that's not bad. And so not only do people do better, but when I get, people come in for tours and they see everyone walking around, I've had Department of Health inspectors come in and go, wow, everyone is in such great shape here. And I tell them, want to know what I'm doing to do that? And they're like, no, we're just here for the compliance aspects. And I'm like, aren't you the Department of Health? Like, wouldn't you, wouldn't you like want to spread sort of ideas that we could maybe help people get healthier? Nope, it's just what's in the regulations. So it just seemed like a great business idea that no one else was doing is let's get into it. And so I just started Googling, researching, talking to experts like yourself, kind of people, and what can I do to make these people healthier? Here's all the list of conditions I've got of people in my own. What can we do to alleviate these as much as possible without, the doctors are the ones prescribing it. I don't touch that medication, but I do ask doctors all the time, why are we on this? Like this person is on 30 medications. Do we really need 30? There's three blood pressure medications here. And especially with AI these days, AI, Grok, whatever, ChatGPT, here's the medications they're on. What kind of side effects do they have? How can we get them off those? And it'll spit that out in 45 seconds. And then, hey, doc, look at this. Let's go over each of these and let's see what we can do improve this or take them off this? Or what marker do I have to achieve? What numbers do I have to achieve that you can say they no longer need this? And then I'll go to work on them. So I think it comes from my manufacturing days of, when you have an assembly line or a manufacturing line, not only are you just cranking out product, but you're constantly, how can we crank out product faster? How can we reduce the scrap of this product? What materials can we substitute to make this product better, cheaper, faster, um, you know, better value for the customer kind of thing? How can we, go from them ordering it to us shipping it in a shorter period of time? All those kind of questions are constantly improve, we call it continuous improvement. Um, how can we make that happen? And I just brought that to assisted living of how can we keep improving this? I'm getting on my soapbox, but the healthcare has this standard of care that you have this problem, you do this. You have this problem, you do this. And that doesn't allow for any improvement. Or if we have improvement, it's let's find a different drug. And that takes years and approvals and trials and everything like that. But there's so much that you can do that is, let's eat differently. Let's exercise more. Let's look at sunshine. Let's look at red light therapy. Let's look at saunas. What are people doing that they're living a lot healthier lives? And let's take some of that and try it in assisted living.
Wow. Innovation really is what you're talking about on so many levels. So good for you. You're just innovating to improve the outcomes for, in this case, humans, and then
Right.
experience. But a couple of things I want to say about what you said that is just so important. For example, traditional healthcare and conventional healthcare, which I was trained in, and the majority of doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs out there practicing today were trained in this traditional method of what you just described. Find the problem, whatever the symptoms or whatever the signs, find the problem, name it, and they've given us something, things that we got to pick from that list, and then
Yeah.
treat it with a pill or a procedure, essentially. I mean, there's some other things. But even the American Heart Association, and I say even because as great of an organization as they are, they're wrong on some things. But be that as it may, there's a lot of experts on all of their panels coming up with these recommendations. And they've come out with statements such as 85% of preventing a heart attack or stroke or even brain health, I would say, even though that's not in their quote, is lifestyle related. 85%. No pill comes close to that. No procedure comes
No.
close to that. I think we're seeing more and more people embracing that and opening up to that and at least wanting to learn more. But there was a time when people truly did not believe heart attack was preventable. It's inevitable, they would think. If you live long enough, you're going to have heart disease and probably have a heart attack. And if you live long enough, your brain probably won't last as long as you do or whatever. These are myths that will not die. And then when you talk about, okay, we know those are myths, well, there are ways to improve these things and keep it from happening in your life. Then people have to warm up to the fact that all of those things you described put together in a thoughtful approach is much more powerful than a pill. Because it sounds like red light therapy, really, that's going to save my life. I mean, no, it's not just that, but it's tackling
Right.
these various aspects that is much more powerful than a pill. So I applaud you for saying with that first gentleman. And then since then, you've had numerous individuals, and some of them dementia, like him, dementia wasn't really the issue. It was needing to lose a huge amount of weight and they couldn't even get out of bed. And I don't even know all of the stories, but I guess the majority are cognitive decline and dementia, correct?
A lot of them are cognitive decline. I find, I don't know in your practice, Gina, if you find it, but the physical ailments are a lot easier to fix than the cognitive decline.
Yes.
The cognitive decline is very challenging, especially because people don't move into assisted living until they're pretty far generally into the cognitive decline stage. They try to sort of take care of it as home as best they can, and then when it becomes too overwhelming for the families, that's when they call assisted living. It's very much the earlier you catch it, the better you do. what I've read, and I'm more than happy to admit I'm wrong, cognitive decline starts in your 30s and 40s even. And the symptoms don't manifest themselves generally until 60s or 70s. However, we're seeing it appear more and more often with the younger and younger crowd. Like there's a lot of people in their 50s now that are showing signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I have even had a lady in my home that was in her 40s that it felt like 51st dates. Every time you talked to her, it was, we'd say the same thing over again. So, um, what you do when you're younger can really affect the older. So when you say, let's start early, when you receive a dementia diagnosis, it's already later in the process. And I think, in the past, it was very much well, it's genetics, right? If my grandmother or my mother has Alzheimer's, that's my future right there. If my dad had a heart attack, I'm better be careful and not eat meat because I might have a heart attack. I'm probably going to have one. And now, not only are we seeing that it's not just genetics, but there's this whole science now of epigenetics, of turning genes on and off so you can change your genetic profile through lifestyle. So even if it is genetic, you can control that to some extent. So um, knowing that, it should give everyone a tremendous amount of hope and a tremendous amount of motivation to change their lifestyle or take charge of their lifestyle and control it to prevent all this stuff later in life.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I love what you just said because epigenetics, people go, like they might turn us off right now. Like, I didn't listen to this to learn a new word, epigenetics. What is that? I love it
Right.
because it's really messages at the cellular level. Our body has this preset DNA or genetics. But as you said, we can turn them on and turn them off. And epigenetics is how those cells talk to each other. And so when you have a symptom, I say it's not a symptom of a disease that we got to name, it's a signal. It's a message that something is going on. So if you can't remember where you put your car keys over and over and over again, it's a signal. You need to think about that.
Exactly.
Or any kind of cognitive decline, can't recall a word, can't recall that patient's name. That's very early, but if it's getting worse and it wasn't a problem last year or the year before, it's an important signal. And if the earlier you start, the better. But at whatever stage you're in, you can change the messages you're sending to those cells. Right now, the epigenetics is going down the path of your ancestors. But yeah, you're right. That's so changeable. You can change those signaling systems.
And it just bugs me because it seems like a lot of medical practitioners, especially with like a dementia diagnosis, we joke here, diagnose and adios. You
Mm,
know, hey, you got dementia, you got to get your affairs in order, and down the line, you're going to be looking at assisted living and all the memory care and hospice and everything like that. Well, obviously, down the line, we're all looking at hospice, but um, they don't they don't give you any tools or hope or, like you can fight it. And even if you lose the battle, isn't that better than just sitting there thinking, contemplating, well, my brain's disappearing every day here. So it bugs me that, they say, well, you don't want to give anyone false hope. Well, you don't want to just give people complete despair either. You
that's right.
know,
Yeah.
here's a gun. Why don't you go just end it now? Because this is what you're looking at in the future. So, and the drugs that they give you have all kinds of side effects and don't work and maybe slow it down. And I get a lot of people asking, well, if they're not going to remember me and it's not my mom or dad anymore, what's the point? Well, there's still glimmers. And when we do this, improvement is slow and gradual and it may never come back, but there are days where they remember all kinds of really cool stuff. And you can still have those kind of moments with your mom and dad. So, you know, and especially if they're hurting in their body, they've got diabetes, they've got neuropathy, they've got heart conditions, things like that. All of that can be improved greatly, if not completely reversed. And so even if they're forgetful and everything, you're going to have them a much better body, and that starts to heal their mind a little better too. So um, I don't want anyone to give up hope, you know. Yeah, okay, they're probably going to pass. They're not eating anymore. They're on hospice, you know. Yeah, they're going to pass away in the next couple days. There are definitely signs. I get it. But let's get the maximum amount of life and have that steep decline at the end rather than a gradual decline over 10 to 20 years.
Yes, and that's what you're offering there, and it's working. I don't want people to think that there's been one or two success cases. There's been several, and I'm going to put the link to the most recent YouTube video that you did with the lovely lady. Her name escapes me. That came in. I'm not sure. I'm sure I they
Melissa,
Melissa. Yes, I'm like, I'm sure they said her name in the video. But anyway, yeah, they came in terrible shape, if so to speak. And now she's out coaching others, working, walking all over the neighborhood. She is fully engaged again. And so you have stories like that. So it's not just we're doing the best we can. You have success cases. It is possible. I love it.
yeah. So Melissa came to us after seeing a podcast, or her family saw the podcast. She was about 30 to 40 pounds overweight. She had tremors in her hands. She walked with a cane, and we gave her a MOCA test, which is sort of a dementia one-page questions that you can test different parts of your brain with. And she scored a 15 out of 30. Anything below 20 is you probably have dementia. And when she left from us, she scored a 26 on it, almost normal. That's the very high end of mild cognitive decline. And, you know, probably if I gave it to her once or twice more, she'd get it even higher. But she's living back at a town outside Seattle, Washington. She totally embraced the low carb diet that we do. She is on Facebook groups helping other people. I just sent a prospective new resident's family gave I asked Melissa if it's okay, and I gave them her number, and they called her to find out her experience and everything. So she's even talking about moving down here and become an employee. So really great success story. She's the one that I really turned around that is on her own now. Most of the others, like I said, I get them further into dementia, but I've got a lady currently that she came to us about a year and a half ago. She scored a 13 on the MOCA test. She just scored a 20 um, on it about a week ago. So she's almost in the mild cognitive decline. She came to us having hallucinations like multiple times a day. Now she may have one once a week or so. Um, I've got another guy who came to us in a wheelchair, drooling, bent over 90 degrees with Parkinson's. He's walking again. He can play catch with his kids. Um, you know, he's starting to talk again. You can see he's looking around and is a lot more aware. I've had people lose tons of weight. I had a lady come to us weighing 550 pounds who had been in a skilled nursing facility for 9 years on Medicaid. So she was on taxpayers' expense for that. And she lost 230 pounds with us in 9 months. And she's living in an independent living apartment kind of place now. I've had lots of people lose tons of weight, 130 pounds with one lady, 60 or 70 pounds with a gentleman, two gentlemen that have lost that many. Um, I've got lots of people off their diabetes meds. That's kind of easy as long
Amazing.
as they have the motivation to do it. I don't want to say it's easy, but relatively speaking, on the spectrum of conditions I get in my assisted living homes, I look forward to the ones who just have diabetes. Those are, all
Yeah.
right, we're going to do this really quick.
Yeah. Oh,
I've
I'd
had
say
people
there are
go
people
from,
still listening that say you can't reverse diabetes. You and I see that happen in my
right.
practice, you and your residents there. That is like you
Oh
say.
my gosh, Google. I
Yeah.
reversed my diabetes. There's like thousands of stories of people doing it,
Yeah.
right? It's not just you and me, too. I mean, I'm sure you do a fantastic practice. I love what I see here, but we're not like technical experts. It's just you turn around your diet and it
Yeah.
fixes it. Um,
Yeah.
and so, um, yeah, I don't have like a set protocol. I work with a company called A Mind for All Seasons. They're up in Idaho, and they are kind of experts on dementia. They've got a lot of clinicians who just study this for a living. And we have Zoom calls with them, with the family. They take a lot of lab work because we find dementia, there's a lot of different facets, insults to the body that contribute to dementia. And then we use supplementation, diets, exercise, different therapies to help them. And I'm always trying new therapies. Families constantly send me podcasts and studies and YouTube videos of, can we try this with my mom? And I'm like, as long as there's no downside to it, like if it has side effects, I bring in our local doctor and say, are you cool with me trying this? We get waivers and all that stuff. But yeah, they have dementia. What do we got to lose? Let's try it and see. So there's a bunch of core stuff we do, and then we'll try, like we're supplementing with very high dose thiamine B1, trying that with some of them. We're using hydrogen water. We just bought some hydrogen machines and are trying those. Um, so I'm open to ideas, you know,
Yeah.
and I post on Twitter some of the stuff we're doing, and boy, I get all kinds of responses of, have you tried this? Have you tried this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just, we don't have the time or logistics to try everything out there. But if it seems legit and I do some further research and I got a friend who's a naturopath, talk to my doctor and everything. We kind of go through a vetting process, but if it sounds good, let's try it. What do we got
Yeah.
to lose?
Yeah, for sure. That's fantastic. Wow. You know what you're accomplishing there, and again, I understand it's two steps forward, maybe three steps back sometimes. It's trial and error, and it's one is not just one thing. I want people to hear that. It's not just because you change someone's diet or just because you got them moving. It's all of these things together, and you're taking a very individualized approach. But I do just want to talk a minute about how the food there, I can't wait to come try it because I'm going to come out and visit. But it's not only healthy, but it's delicious because you've got Maria involved and you've got great cooks there that are doing magical things with healthy food. Tell us a little bit about that.
When I first got going on this, I just bought a keto cookbook off Amazon and said, let's try this. And I got into the carnivore diet. So I'm like, well, I know how to make eggs and meat and bacon. Our
Yeah.
cooks can make that, no problem. So I did a podcast with Sean Baker, and Maria Emmerich called me out of the blue, said, I love what you're doing. I'm going to send you all my cookbooks. And she sent them from Hawaii at her expense, like 15, 18 books, something like that. So that got us, let's make Maria Emmerich recipes. Um, and then she said, hey, I'm coming into Phoenix to do a cooking demo. And so I'd love to meet you. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to meet you. So I brought my cooks over to the cooking demo. I brought Melissa, who was sort of finishing up with us, over to it. Um, and the person hosting it was one of Maria's health coaches who lived in the Phoenix area. So she and I got to talking, and I'm like, you want a job? And she said, oh, I'd love to. And so I hired her as kind of our health coach. She's not a certified nutritionist. She's certified in Maria Emmerich's program.
Wow.
So she won't let me call her our nutritionist, but so officially she's our health coach, but she teaches our cooks how to make Maria recipe. And one of the great things about Maria's cookbooks is, like you said, it can take regular food that you think is processed off the shelf and stuff, change the ingredients, make it homemade, and all of a sudden it's 5 grams of carbs per servings or 8 grams. You know, there's a lot of people who are saying my mom's not just going to eat steak every meal. All right. I want her to have some vegetables, things like that. So we ask them, what is your mom's favorite meal or your dad's favorite meal? And what do they like? What do they not like? And then we try to tailor the meals to what they like. So we make a keto lasagna, for example, or occasionally we'll make like peanut butter and chocolate fat bombs for dessert. We don't do a lot of desserts, but once a week or so. Um, so they get nutritious, really good, low carb, no sugar foods with a few little sugar substitutes or something to add a little sweet taste. Um, but they think they're eating, um, just regular food, like nothing's changed. In fact, when we got this health coach in and we had our cooks do it, I actually had residents come to me and say, I'm so glad you hired these people because the food is just so much better now. And I was thinking, and it's much more nutritious, and you're not, so there are ways of cooking. And elderly people, their sense of taste and smell isn't what it was when they were 25 in a lot of cases. So you can tell if you or I ate the food, you'd notice, okay, this isn't quite lasagna, or this isn't Mexican, you know, pot Mexican taco mix or something like that. But to them, it tastes pretty much the same, and it still tastes great. I don't notice. I'm not like, oh, this is completely different. It might be a little off, but it still tastes wonderful. So Maria's been a godsend for me. It makes it so much easier, and I don't have them fighting. I can't be a short order cook. I can't like everyone gets their own meal, but we can sort of rotate through what everyone likes so that everyone gets their kind of favorite meal once a week or so at least.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. Everyone that's listening, I want you to know that this home, this program, what Hal is offering is very reasonably priced. There are so many assisted living homes that are extremely high. It's very expensive to try to get high quality care for our elderly, but to get high quality care with the attempt at improvement in life and a robust attempt, I would say, with success stories of having the individual leave there and go back home, with that being the goal, not just, well, this is the end of the line, we'll make it as good as we can. That's like you're not accepting that. And I think it's going to change the game. It's going to take a while. Obviously, these kind of movements do, but I look forward to the day when thousands of people's lives are turned around and they enter a facility such as yours, a home such as yours, with a program such as yours, and then they go back home. That becomes the norm rather than the rare finding.
And yeah, one of the biggest problems with assisted living homes in general is activities. You can only play bingo so many times. So I I'd solve that with, hey, we're exercising. Now we're getting on the exercise with oxygen therapy machine. Now we're going to do some red light therapy. Now you're going to get in the sauna, and kind of the day runs away from you by the time you get all those done too. So they stay active as well, and improving their bodies and their minds. So it kind of helps in two aspects. People send me lots of videos of assisted living residents going down a water slide, or playing catch with balloons, or playing Hungry Hungry Hippo kind of things. And I'm like, that's wonderful, fun, but you can only do that so many times. And they're like, okay, I'm bored. I don't want to play Hungry Hungry Hippo again today. So this is, hey, you got to do this every day to get it improved. So they just accept it, and they're very accommodating to do it. They don't fight us a lot on it. There are days that I don't want to exercise today. I'm tired, or um, you know, I had one gentleman get really mad and uh, soiled his pants to get out of the exercise. So, there are definitely times, but for the most part, they just accept that that's the daily routine, and then it keeps them occupied and busy and engaged. And I think one of the biggest challenges to dementia is where they just sort of don't have any more purpose in life. They have nothing to look forward to, and then their mind just starts shutting down. And I think if you can put the goal out there of this is going to hopefully get you to move back home, then it gives them a reason to get up in the morning each day.
Yes. Yes, for sure. What greater goal could there possibly be? Yeah, that's fantastic.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I know that there are other meetings coming up. I would love to talk for another hour. I want you to, end on anything that you want us to know or that you think about that. Oh, I didn't mention whatever you want here at the end. But I just want to say how thrilled I am. One, I'm not thrilled that one of my patients needed your services, but I am thrilled that, as I started out, that you're there doing what you do. And I look forward to collaborating not only on that patient, but we have other patients to talk about. And I know we were talking about collaborating on other levels. So I'm fully supportive of what you're doing there. It's going to change the future of many thousands and ultimately, I think hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. You're just starting with what you've got, and this will take over. The wellness industry is taking over, and people in their 30s now are thinking about, fortunately, more so than they were last year and 5 years ago and 10 years ago. Now, people are starting to understand things are starting to happen in my 20s and 30s and 40s that I don't want to live through when I'm 60, 70, 80, and 90. And as we think about longevity, I tell people, think about your 90-year-old self today when you decide, when you're thinking about, this is me personally. Do I drive through the donut shop or do I eat, the eggs and bacon or whatever? I don't drive through the donut shop anymore. I haven't in years. But if I were going to have one thing that I love, it's like there's the most fabulous donut shop very near my house, but it's just not interesting to me anymore because I'm thinking about, I want to see the grandchildren. I want to ride bikes with them. I want to walk the dog. I want to compete, maybe in local athletic 5Ks and things like that. Those types of things are possible with the lifestyle you're talking about, and with now that we have these regenerative procedures and peptide therapies that are helping those signals being even stronger that we were talking about earlier. It's an exciting time to be in healthcare because we can truly turn some of these things around. So I just can't applaud you enough for blazing a trail, and I want to support any way I can. But just give us your final thoughts or anything else you would like for us to know. And I certainly will put the information in the show notes for people to be able to reach out to you and find your website and things.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, if not for you, a lot of people are resistant to change and stuff, but having someone with dementia or Alzheimer's in your family is a tremendous burden on your family. Um, you've got to, A, it's going to be expensive. B, it's going to be very time consuming. And C, it can be emotionally draining. People have divorces over it and family breakups, and it's a tremendous toll. So if you don't want to do that, treat yourself. If you're not so worried about yourself, worry about your family because it's really hard. I think that almost everything can be reversed unless it's really some specific genetic malfunction or something like that, or your birth defect you had. Um, I look at professional athletes. I was Googling that the other day, and if they're not in a sport that has a lot of head trauma, football, soccer, boxing, things like that. Yes, those kind of sports, you're going to get problems. So I look at professional athletes. If they're not in a sport that's boxing, football, soccer, something where they're hitting their head a lot, um, very few of them have dementia, Alzheimer's later in life. They're they're taking care of their bodies, they're eating well, things like that. And so just don't get it. The head injuries can cause those. Muhammad Ali is a perfect example, Parkinson's. But if you don't have that, the track athletes, baseball, hockey, well, hockey causes some concussions there, but sports that you've got to be in really good shape that don't have a ton of contact, you're going to live a long, healthy life, probably. So, unless obviously you injure your arm or legs or something like that. But you look at people like Jack LaLanne or Arnold Schwarzenegger or these people that sort of the extreme fitness, and they live forever. Jack LaLanne on his 77th birthday towed a bunch of boats swimming across a river, you know, and no, he was giving interviews at 95, 96 years old, doing fine. So look at those outliers and see that, if you take care of yourself, it really makes a difference. I would also suggest people come to a memory care unit, even if you don't have any problems in your family. Come to a memory care unit. Bring your mom or dad there, even if they're doing well, and say, this is preventable. Like we take kids and high school kids and take them to jails and say, we don't want you to live a life of crime, right? So we'll scare you straight. Well, we want to scare you healthy. And I'm more than happy to have you tour my places or something like that, or some of my friends, and say, you don't want your mom or dad in here. Let's work on this now before it gets bad. In fact, I'm teaming up with a doctor who's very motivated to help people with diet and get them off medications, and my health coach, and we're going to put on a webinar soon of how to stay out of assisted living as long as possible. Because every month you stay out of it is $3,000 to $10,000 in your pocket. So we want you, if you need something like assisted living, we want it to be like the last 2 or 3 months of your life rather than the last 2 or 3 or 10 years of your life. So I'd love to promote that. I'll try and give you a link to that soon or something. But my goal is to get rid of the assisted living industry someday. I'm
Yes.
I'm not in any worry that it's going to happen anytime real soon, but let's move in that direction.
Yes. Tell me one more time what you like to say to individuals' children. Like, we love your mom or
Oh,
your
I say we love your mom and dad, but we don't want them in our home. We need to get them out of here as fast as possible.
Yes, I
You
love
can come back and visit anytime, but we're sick of your family being here.
them. We want them to get back to full functioning. Yes.
Exactly.
Wow.
And as you do, I'm sure you want your mom and dad at home and not in our home and paying me money to do this.
Yes, yes. I loved that you brought that up as well, because if you won't do it for yourself, we would do anything for our children, right? But we're setting them up for trouble in the future for that you just spoke about, to the expense and the heartache of taking care of us. Yeah. So,
Right. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. My uncle had ALS, which was absolutely horrific.
oh,
All that before I owned any assisted living homes, knew any of this. I wish I knew back then what I knew now.
yes.
But, my grandmother, every time I visited her, we'd have to go to Baker Square and have a French silk pie together. So,
Mm,
you can see the connection.
yes, for sure. Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience and your expertise with us today. We'll do another one of these and we'll let the listeners know our progress as we collaborate together as well and do some future things. Let us know how we can support and help what you're doing there in any way, because I can't think of anything more important. And I will see you in Arizona one of these days too.
I would love it, Gina. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal.
Take care.